Hey, how we doing today? My son graduated from high school this year, and boy, it gave me an interesting viewpoint into the college financial aid system, more so than I've had in a long time on a personal basis. But wow, things have changed drastically in the last couple of years. And I want to talk about that because if you have a student, whether it's a child or grandchild, that's getting close to college age, it's important to know these things, and it's important to know how colleges are thinking and what you can do to kind of prepare. So I did a little bit of deep diving just to see what was going on. And right now there's about 19 million people attending college. I think full time was the number I looked up. There was, my gosh, the number of different things they track: full time, part time, this type, that type. It was about 19 million. But what the reality was across the board, whether it was part time, full time, different institutions, is college attendance is down about 8% from 2010. 2010 was the high. And that surprised me. I didn't realize it was that far. It was 16 years ago that was the high. I would have thought it was closer to 2017, 2018, 2019. And it wasn't. Is they've seen some slow drop off over the last 15 years. And that's finally hitting home. Uh, is up until now, there, it's been somewhat competitive. When I graduated high school in 1987, there were more students than seats. There were more students than seats. Is There wasn't a huge building explosion until the late 80s, early 90s for colleges in America. You didn't see them really ramp up until then. And I may have said this before in a previous podcast, but may have been one of the last classes that they bring you in for orientation. You're sitting there in the auditorium, and it's just the students. The parents are off somewhere else. The auditorium is filled with students for the weekend. And they said, look to your left, look to your right. One of you is going to be gone before the end of the school year. And they don't say that anymore because when financial aid changed in the mid 80s and it became more loan based loans, prior to that, I mean, even through the almost the mid 90s, people didn't talk about getting financial aid from a school or from a bank. They were taking loans against their houses. That's how you funded it. And it was actually with the equity you had in your house, it was affordable. And then it just kind of went rampant. With that happening, there was something what coincided with it. And I don't want to make it sound like colleges and universities were nefarious in this. I think they were truly trying to help, and they were trying to solve a problem, much like government. Government does a great job of trying to solve problems and makes them worse sometimes. Um, but instead of worrying about delivering the best students possible, they started seeing what they could do to keep these kids in school longer, which on its face sounds like a noble thing to do. Is let's make sure we can get more kids through this and to get more education into the American public as a whole. And the problem is that's not how they looked at it. They didn't hire like extra tutors and really buckle down. They dumbed down the education. And that's really frustrating to me when I saw my older three kids go through college and know that I knew things that they didn't know at certain levels of their education, and was shocked at how little they came out with, because it was more important to make sure they stayed there for 4 years and got a degree. And that's why the degrees don't matter as much. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So it was an interesting exercise with my son. One of the first things that I found fascinating was, again, in 1987, 2016, big difference. There's this thing called a unified application that everything's done online now. And instead of you even applying to college A, college B, college C, college D, college E, you fill out one unified application. And based on how much you're filling out, is your college may say, well, these are the requirements. And you fill out those requirements and it's all online. You then automatically submit it to college A, college B, and you pay the fee once at the unified application company, and they take care of all of it. They ship it out, and then you hear back, and you hear back ridiculously fast. I remember sending in my stuff, I don't know, maybe January, um, and hearing back in March, or maybe December and hearing back in March. There were people at early decision. People still do early decision, but I don't think it's as popular as it was 40 years ago. You would wait. months to get this thing back because everything was by hand. And the worst thing for me, and I don't want to say I was a lazy student, I just saw the futility of why am I writing the same information over and over and over again? Somebody figured that out, created this unified application. I applied to 3 colleges, 3. And I was pretty confident in 2 out of the 3 I could get in. The third one, which is the one I went to, I was like, oh, I don't know. And in hindsight, they were going to bring me in. I was well above average student in high school. I was a well above average student in college. They were going to accept me, but I was very nervous about it. You just don't know. You know, we were the first generation that actually went to college, so it was a big deal. But this unified application thing is fascinating because it would pop up with this thing of, hey, for an extra $30, you can apply to this other college over here. Hey, for an extra $25, you can apply here because based on how much you filled out of the application, we're gonna, this thing that might fit in with what you're doing, and that's brilliant if you're a college. That's brilliant. I don't know this for a fact. I just watched my son go through it. But what a marketing system is to get students to apply for more colleges, and those colleges may be willing to pay the application company for the suggestion in the first place. It's kind of like there's that company that advertises on the internet and on um, gosh, I think I've seen it on TV. It's like the Angie's List for assisted living facilities. I won't even mention the company name. And what you don't realize is they have a list of companies that pay them to be on that list. I don't like that about that. You think they're unbiased. This is not unbiased. This is just saying, hey, did you want to apply over here? I like that a little bit better, but it was an interesting business model. So you applied for like 7 or 8 different places. Oh yeah, I'll apply here. Oh, might as well throw it in there. There were other ones you went, yeah, I'm not doing that at all. I can't be bothered. So it was very interesting. And he got accepted to every place he applied. He's a smart kid. He's a really smart kid. And is all my kids were smart. He's very book smart on top of it. Although, he gets he does things I didn't do as a student. I didn't learn to actually do homework like at all, like ever until I went to college. I had to do homework once I went to college. I would do it literally in homeroom in the morning. I would go home at the end of the school day, get on the bus or get in my car, go home, and wouldn't think about it again until oh crud, it's 7:50 in the morning, and that math homework is due at 11 o'clock this morning, and frantically finish it, and still finished well. It was easy. He does actual homework, and they make him do homework. He's taking it 2 AP classes, but I digress. Um, a couple of things I saw differently about the process that I've seen slowly change over time, but it was a bigger deal this time. Is the first, if you go on to any college or university website in the US and you go to the admissions area, they are very prominently telling you what percentage of their students are collecting aid. Now, I've always taken that with a grain of salt that they were giving me those numbers because they're ridiculous. We give out aid to 92% of our students, and I'm like, there's no way you're doing that. They can't. They're futzing with the math. I don't believe it. Um, they are giving out aid at this point, and I was dumbfounded by that. Not to say that my son is not brilliant. He is. Is he smarter than I was 40 years ago? I don't know. Maybe we're neck and neck. There are some things I'm faster at than him. So there's some things he's faster at than me. But I applied to 3 colleges and I got zero aid. I think all but one college he applied for, and that included state colleges, gave him some sort of aid. Say here, and not here's this loan. We don't qualify for a lot of financial aid because I've done a good job of saving for my son's education and my daughter's before him. We don't get a lot of financial aid. It wasn't here's this loan, here's this college works, but it's here's this cash. And I was blown away as they are much more willing to part with it because they realize there's a lot more seats than there are students. Is if we could fill every seat 16 years ago, there's 8% less students sitting in those seats. And these colleges are finally getting that point. So with that being said, I want to talk about, based on kind of tiers of where your student is or where you are, if you're listening to this, what you should be thinking about. So we'll start with the imminent. Is it's next year. You just graduated your junior year. A student just graduated your junior year. What are you looking at besides this new unified application process, which is awesome? Uh, Expect, if your student is above average, you should expect some aid. And I would go in with that expectation. I would not go, boy, I hope so. I would expect it, and to the degree of um, asking for it, or asking for more if you need it. Um, and if you need it, I'm not one of those guys that let's get whatever we can out of them and hey, too bad for them. But if you need it, um, asking it for is okay. I used to recommend years ago, back in the 90s, when aid was similar to it is now, but not loaded with loans at the time. I used to tell people, bring donuts. Bring the admissions people donuts when you go for a school visit. I don't tell people that anymore, um, because back then Dunkin' Donut used to make their own donuts back in the stores. They're not very good now. Donuts are such a small percentage of what Dunkin', which is now Dunkin', it's not even Dunkin' Donuts anymore, sells, that it's not worth it. But I would recommend that on a school visit or a separate trip next fall, early in the fall maybe, I would make it a point to make an appointment with admissions just to talk about the numbers. Say, hey, look, I just want to talk to somebody, some sort of person, about the particulars of this and how this works and what my options might be, because little Joey really wants to go here and we're trying to make sure we can make it work. If you have a cookie that, my gosh, people ask you to make these cookies when you go somewhere, bake that cookie. If you don't just bake a cookie just to bake. You want a little bit of a wow factor. Um, if you're thinking cookies, I will tell you, you buy a bag of Nestle Toll House chips and follow the recipe to a T on the back. If you want that, is to a T, except for, I'll tell you a couple of things. Use all butter, melt it, make the cookies right away. You'll get those flat crispy cookies if you like flat crispy cookies. If you refrigerate it, whether you melt the butter or not, if you refrigerate the dough and then cook the dough cold, the cookies won't spread out as much. If you like perfect ball cookies and they'll get perfectly round, go ahead and do that. If you want them chewy, you can use bread flour versus all purpose. But you can make a decent cookie just with that, or a week before your trip to the admissions office, buy two bananas and let them sit on your counter. And then the night before, make banana bread, because banana bread is like ubiquitous. I don't care. I've seen 1,000 recipes for banana bread. They all taste exactly the same. But you want to bring something that they remember you by. And that's why you don't want to get a bunch of store-bought anything. Stop at your local grocery store and get a pastry platter. Don't do that. Make it homemade. Make it homemade. When you show up, just say, hey, look, you know, I brought this for you guys because the professors and teachers really get all of the credit around here, and I know, with all my research and doing all of this, you guys work really hard. I just want to say thank you for that, and maybe give you guys a little something to munch on during your coffee break today, and that's it. Leave it just right there. You're not trying to bribe them. You're trying to make yourself memorable. Oh, that was that family that brought us the banana bread. I remember them. That's who you want to be. It's important to make that impression on as many people as possible. And I'll talk about another technique in the next section. Uh, but finally, you've got to consider, if it's imminent, cost versus benefit. And I hate to say this. But a private institution, 4 years living there. Again, 40 years ago, it was affordable. People could pay it. It was tight, but they could pay it. And the party scene and the goof off and the experience of college was worth the expense because of what you were getting back. And I'm not sure that's really the truth anymore. I think, again, they commoditized making sure we get as many kids through these 4 years as possible, trying to help them, and they caused them the problem. Another problem is, an undergraduate degree is an undergraduate degree is an undergraduate degree. It's just, and it's a question of how much problems are you going to cause. I had a gentleman in, uh, gosh, about a year ago. He came in, nice guy, and it's got to be in his mid to late 70s. And he went to Holy Cross. And how I went to know he went to Holy Cross? He must have mentioned it 500 times in 2 meetings, that how important it was. And he graduated in like 1971, when that was important. Was he went to college. He was the first person in his family to go to college, and going to Holy Cross was a big deal to him, and a big deal in the area that he was in. And he's in his late 70s, and he's just used to saying that, even though it means absolutely nothing anymore. And he doesn't know. And thankfully he's retired and it doesn't matter. I met with a gentleman, gosh, this is going to be 8 or 9 years ago. It was pre-COVID. So it was probably 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. Two sons in high school. And he came from a family where it was a broken family. He didn't get to go to the college he wanted. I think he had to settle, and he wasn't real happy with that. But it was very important that his sons went to a very what he considered a prestigious institution: BC, BU, Northeastern. Those were the big three. They weren't, neither of his kids he thought were smart enough for Harvard at the time, which that's okay. Harvard's not the end all be all. Um, but it was important. And what really struck me was the amount of money he was willing to put up for this education. It was, at the time, let's say $70,000 a year. So $280,000. And he was willing to put up about $20,000 a year. And I was dumbfounded that he was going to put both his sons on the hook for about $200,000 worth of debt for an education that not many places would go, oh, you went to BC versus, oh, you went to UMass or UMass, or any, wherever, URI, wherever. It just wasn't going to carry that cachet that he did. And you got to do that mental math. Is the hole I'm going to put myself worth the amount of money it's going to cost me? Am I going to get something back on the backside? Is this going to get me a better job? Now, if you're looking at uh, postgraduate master's degrees, it matters a lot more. It matters a lot more for the job you're going for, the first job you're going for after that, which can set you up. Just like 40 years ago, it was important to get that good college at that point. Um, I don't think that's the case anymore for undergraduate. You have to be aware of that. So that's what you want to be thinking about: is get there early. And I would get there early. If you haven't been start visiting colleges, you better get in gear. You better get in gear as soon as possible. You're kind of behind the times, which brings us back to kind of it's kind of soon. You've got maybe a freshman or a sophomore, even a junior this year, or going into this new school year. I'd start visiting schools now. I just would. I know it's hard with a ninth grader or even a 10th grader, but if they have an interest and they're kind of moving towards that, and you're willing to encourage that, some people are, some people aren't, depending on what they're going into for a field. I remember back, gosh, it's gonna be 20 years ago, when CSI, when they had like 3 different CSI shows going on, the number of people that went into forensics was absolutely astronomical. And none of them went into, there's not that many calls for the Gus Grissom's to go out there and to analyze, the blood splatter pattern. It just doesn't happen. It was cool because there were 3 different shows. They were all hit shows, and everybody applied. You want to be careful with that. But if your student is going for something that makes sense, that they can make a career out of, and they're showing a tendency early, you want to encourage that, and you want to start looking at schools for that. Here's the reason: is if you start being known at this institution, you're going to get more noticed and probably more aid, and that's going to help. So I'll tell you a story. It's my son, as a sophomore, between sophomore and junior year, he's going into marine biology, and he did a 1 week summer program at the college he's now going to this fall. And beautiful campus, great people. They're heavy on research, and that's why he's going. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Well, he knows the dean. He knows 2 or 3 of the teachers. He knows a couple of administrators, because my son is also very personable. He is very it's not, I don't know how to describe it. He's just he's willing to introduce himself. He creates a great presence. He is very respectful. And my gosh, he makes an impression because of that. So these people, he was there, as I'm recording this, he was there a week or two ago for just this get together. And he bumped into 3 or 4, faculty and staff that, hey, William, you're coming here, right? Hey, William, how's things going? Or he'd go up and, hey, Dean so-and-so, what's new? Hey, William, what's going on? That's a big deal. Is if your child is interested in X and there's a program at the university or college for X, a summer program, it's cool to send them. And I will tell you this because I did not have this in mind. I was not this creative. It was just he wanted to go, and I thought it was great. And it's a 30-minute drive from our house. We dropped him off, picked him up 5 days later. He was happy. He learned a lot of stuff. He got to do a lot of stuff, experience a lot of stuff, which was a big deal for him. But everybody knew him, and I'm convinced that's a big part of why they also gave him the most financial aid, like the most, by far the most financial aid. They said, here, we would like you to come here because everybody knew William. Everybody knew William. That makes a difference. So you want to be aware of that. You also want to start looking on the saving side. So on the financial side is the nest egg you've got building up for college, assuming you have one. And don't worry if you don't. Most people don't, but you should. You should have one. I want you to start thinking about, with 4 years or less, maybe I want to get more conservative. This is my opinion. This is something I believe. But if you look at the fiduciary rules, they tell you to get more conservative. Sometimes people go, well, I don't know if I'm going to pay for this, so I better swing for the fences. You can do that, and statistically, you'll be right, but you also don't want to be the person that ends up um, having the market crash the year that you go to college, which happened to me. It's 87. I graduated in 87. That fall, I remember sitting in the cafeteria watching the news, and the news had this screen that they played behind the reporters, and people were standing outside of Fidelity in Post Office Square in Boston. So obviously grew up, was in the Boston area, and the ticker tape is going. We forget how bad 1987 was today. The ticker tape's going behind. It's 6:30 at night, and we're still getting updates on prices because not everything's computerized, and they shoved everything in during the trading time. It's 2.5 hours since, or 2.25 hours since the market closed, and they haven't finished processing all the trades that day. And the market was down 20 something percent in one day. It was massive. Yeah, you don't want to be in that position where, oh, I got to make a tuition payment in 2 months and I just lost 22% of my portfolio. Don't do that. This is the time to be looking at your portfolio and saying, let's make a good choice to make sure the money is there. Okay. Any younger than that. So you're looking at junior high or middle school, however you say it. I still say junior high. They did middle school, and my kids in the town we grew up in, they grew up in. Beyond, all the way down to age 0. Save some money. Save, 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 save. And it's a question of where. And this really depends on your situation and your situation only. There are 3 buckets you can choose to save. You can put the money in a 529 plan. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what a 529 plan is. It's a college savings plan. You put the money in, it grows tax deferred. It comes out tax free if you use it for education, regardless of your income level. That's very, very important. The downside, it's pretty much education only. Even you can use it for going to tech school or plumbing school or anything like that. Any post-secondary, and actually some secondary programs do qualify, but it's really only designed for education. And some people are hesitant to put money into it because what if Joey doesn't want to go to college? He wants to do this other thing, and I don't want to put this money and then tie it up, because pulling the money out without using it for educational purposes is all of the taxes plus a 10% penalty tax, regardless of your age. You could be 99 years old. When you take it out, there's a 10% penalty tax because it wasn't used for education. The second thing is a UTMA, UGMA account, Uniform Trust to Minors Act, Uniform Gift to Minors Act. The money is in the child's name. you or whomever, if you're a grandparent, you can also pick your child as their parent, as a trustee of the account, is they manage it for the child's benefit. And when the child reaches the age of majority, either 18 or 21 in the states, depending on which state you're in, then they have access to the money. The upside is it's in their it goes on their tax return, which there's some funky things with that, but it goes on their tax return. It doesn't go on your tax return. Is they will pay all the capital gains and interest and things like that. It's their money. And that stops some people. It can affect financial aid if you're getting regular financial aid. It will affect it. Is half of your students' assets will count towards the family contribution of that year. They want your child to spend all of the money on their education. So this will affect their ability to apply for financial aid on a needs basis. And then the third is doing a TOD or a POD, which is transfer on death or pay on death. And this money stays in your name. You pay taxes on it as it grows. You get to decide when you want to give your student, whether it's child or grandchild, this money. It's your money. But if something happens, if a meteor lands on you and kills you, it automatically goes to them. So it's earmarked for them. You don't have to worry about, oh, I forgot to put this in my will or my trust. Nope, it is earmarked and it will go directly to them. And all three of these, it really depends on what works for you. Is you're crystal balling this a little bit of trying to figure out, especially if you have a very young. I have two grandchildren. One will be 1 in a month, and the other one's 2.5. Good luck me knowing what they're going to do in high school, let alone college. You do the best you can for them and make the best decision. It's probably going to be a little bit wrong, probably not a lot wrong, but you'll be able to work through it. The most important thing is to save the money, is save as best you can. Save money for this cost because it is going to go up. It is going to go up to some extent, and it's going to be expensive, and you want to try to provide for your kids. So that's what we got today. If you have questions, you can jump down in the show notes. You can reach us through our website, through our social media. Definitely reach out if you have questions on your specific situation. You can also email me directly at dennis@successfulmoney.com. It's that simple. And we'll see if we can help you. But good luck in your college education future. Stay safe out there.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Remember, the views expressed are not necessarily those of Successful Money Strategies. All content is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as an endorsement of any third party or their views, or as a solicitation or offer to sell securities or provide investment, tax, legal, or consulting services. We believe the information presented to be reliable, but it is not guaranteed for accuracy or completeness. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Hypothetical returns do not reflect actual trading and may not be indicative of the performance of any specific investment. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Additional information, including management fees and expenses, is provided on our Form ADV Part 2, available upon request, or at the SEC's Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website, https://advisorinfo.sec.gov.